Hello and welcome to NPTEL's course on communication skills. We have been discussing on Netiquette and this is module 9 lecture 2 in continuation with the previous lecture on Netiquette. In the previous lecture on Netiquette already we talked about what is Netiquette and why do we need Netiquette. Netiquette is seen as a portmanteau word which is combined from internet and etiquette. So, it implied the kind of norms, the regulatory behavior, the socially acceptable norms which are required for communicating in a professional or even in a personal level using the internet, the cyberspace for effective communication. Now, in the previous lecture I also talked about some of the basic norms, though simple but absolutely necessary in using internet for communication in general and using email for communication in particular. Now, in this lecture you will learn and understand some more norms of Netiquette, and as I said, although these are simple norms, they are nonetheless the most basic ones. Now, in continuation with the aspect of subject lines that I talked about before, I said subject lines are absolutely necessary. Even while replying, subject lines are necessary. So, respect reply, avoid re. Now, what is it? It sounds monotonous and ridiculous, but what it is, it is actually using that automated re for reply without giving any thought to changing the subject line. When you do this, it looks ridiculous. So many re's on the subject line and no thought is given to any change in thought that occurred in the content of the email. Now, why it is again important? One may always say that I am quite busy, so I could not even find time to change that re in the subject line, that is fine. But as I said, remember the cardinal principle of Netiquette, empathize, put yourself into the shoes of the other person, have consideration for the other person. Now, what happens if you carefully use a subject line and avoid this re while replying? Look at the example. Assuming that there is an employee and then he is in dire need of some money, maybe for some medical reasons he needs some money to be sanctioned immediately, and the office environment is like that, it is a weekend and the only form of communication is email, and is awaiting that email from the boss who is having a discussion with some of his important administrators, and then he is supposed to inform the person through mail. Now, if the mail comes with the subject line on the reply re amount sanctioned, here the re is used effectively, only one reply indicating automated re, but the subject line that is added amount sanctioned can be of great relief to the employee even before opening the mail. The employee, just by looking at the mail, he knows very well that okay, amount has been sanctioned, I am relieved to see this. Now, he opens it and then he knows okay, so much amount has been sanctioned, I will take in the form of a draft or it will be sent to my bank account, etc. But at the outset, indicating something very positive is useful, especially if you are going to give consideration for the other person's feelings. Conversely, using an old mail for the sake of address, but not changing the subject matter. So, most of the people what they will do, although in the email there are options for saving the person's address either automatically or doing that at one's will and discretion, people do not use this function. They do not save the address of the person. What they do otherwise is, whenever they want to reply to that person, they go back to one of the previous email sent by the person and reply. Now, what happens in this case, just for the sake of address, the subject matter is not changed and then it is sent without any subject, but it uses the previous subject. Now, look at this example. As the convener of the department postgraduate committee, I received a mail from a colleague of mine with the subject matter vending machine, vending machine. Now, when I look at this, I think that it is about vending machine, but then I also realized at that point of time that the vending machine discussion was over about 6 months before, and that was in a different context. Why is this person sending this? When I opened the mail, I understood that the person wanted me to forward a new postgraduate course developed by the sender, because I am the convener of that committee. Now, just because the person did not say my email ID or just thought that would reply the previous mail, but not change the subject line, it caused confusion to me, and I was wondering why one would talk about vending machine when the whole matter was discussed and finalized about 6 months before. And then I later realized that, oh, it is not about vending machine, it is about a course proposal. Now, here again you see it is very important that you are giving a course proposal and you are not even mentioning at the outset. Rather, you could have said, for instance, new course proposal on professional communication, or even a simple thing like professional communication, assuming that that is the course title. As soon as the other person sees, okay, it is a proposal for the course, and very clearly he knows it is nothing else, not about vending machine. Now, in this case what has happened, obviously my colleague has used an earlier mail in which we had shared some suggestions on vending machine. We thought of installing a vending machine in the department. So, he thought of discussing something about it in the previous email, but this time he has used it, but without changing the subject line, and doing that is rather inappropriate. And as I said, actually it is causing inconvenience to the receiver and sometimes delay in response. Now, the next now, I would say again it is a very important now, avoid typing in full capitals, avoid typing in full capitals. Remember, I said avoid overemphasizing in the subject line using capitals. I also gave the example of the employer who always used capitals to say his message, and always he wrote in capitals urgent, respond immediately, and eventually most of his employers never responded to the email immediately. Some of them never responded at all. Now, that is about subject line. Now, I am talking about avoiding typing in full capitals inside the body, inside the email. Now, many net users think that capital letters ought to be used for emphasis. In reality, unnecessary use of capitals is considered shouting or yelling. Look at this, I am suddenly changing the font from small letters to capital letters, and see when I am just reading this, how difficult it will be for you to read along with me. Moreover, long sentences with full capital letters are difficult to comprehend, and eyes take more time to capture the message. And look at these 4 lines of full capital letters, and look at these previous 3 lines of small letters. Even just at a quick look, you will understand that the small letters are easier, pleasant to understand compared to the ones with capital letters. They become lengthy, they occupy space, they look cramped also. Now, you could see the difference just by reading the previous sentence itself. The next important now, no random CCing, do not reply all. No random CCing. CC comes from the original context in which typing was used, where CC was referring to carbon copy. Okay. Now, CC is generally understood now as a copy, probably the first copy that you are sending it to the receiver along with somebody else. Now, sometimes what people do is they do random CCing, that is sometimes instead of pressing the reply button, they will press reply all. Now, what happens in this case? The message is initially sent to all the people in a group, but when the person is replying, his reply is only sent particularly to one person, probably that head or the manager or the convener who sent that group mail before. Now, while replying, unnecessarily this person is sending to all the persons. Now, what happens in this case? He is trying to seek attention, but then this seeking attention behavior, unwarrantedly seeking attention behavior by sending an email to all the recipients who need not receive it at all, this is considered rude, this is considered impolite from the side of the sender. This is treated bad mannered, this is considered discourteous and even uncouth, because the sender is taking for granted the time of unsolicited receivers. He is not concerned about their time, he is just thinking that let me send this, let everybody come to know of what I am communicating with my convener or chairperson. Now, even just the time it takes to identify that the mail is unwarranted from the perspective of the receiver, just to know that the mail does not pertain to me, it is a kind of communication between this person with somebody else which has nothing to do with me. Even knowing that much takes some time, and then after realizing that it is unwarranted and then thinking of deleting it, even that much time is unworthy of giving to this kind of unsolicited replies. So, habitual or inadvertent copying to many or replying should be avoided at all cost. The next now, use abbreviations discreetly. You can use abbreviations in email communication, although generally it is suggested as a norm that you avoid using abbreviations as much as possible in formal business professional communication. In email, given the nature of email which is supposed to be short and precise, one is at one level allowed to use abbreviations, but in a professional environment when you are using abbreviations, use them discreetly. What do I mean by discretion? Use caution, give a thought even before using that abbreviation. There are acronyms where the first letters actually represent the word, like WHO, World Health Organization. Now, when you are using an abbreviation like this, you know that it is important that you indicate that by capital letters. Now, if you use small letters, this can be simply mistaken for the question, the interrogative who. So, while using abbreviations or acronyms, use the ones which are commonly known and use them in a proper manner. If you have to give capital, or small, give small, and make them universally recognizable. So, there are some common and universally recognizable abbreviations which you should use. Your own abbreviations created, your own acronyms formed should be avoided. Now, look at some of the abbreviations in an email context, in the context of internet, which are universally acceptable. AKA, also known as ASAP, as soon as possible, BTW, by the way, CUL8R, indicating see you later, FYI, for your information, KIT, keep in touch, LOL, laughing out loud, SYS, see you again, TYVM, thank you very much, WRT, with respect to. Now, these are some of the common examples which are universally recognizable and known to most of the people, and in fact, even in internet itself, there are lot of abbreviations which are available, which are universally acceptable also. But using abbreviations according to one's whims and fancy, and that too with inconsistent spelling, would cause confusion to the receiver. The message can be distorted or misrepresented and result in evoking a negative response. So, that is why I said at the beginning, use abbreviations, but use them discreetly, use them with caution, use your prudence, use your sense of justice. Can you really use these abbreviations? Will it not be misunderstood by others? Then only you use abbreviations. The next norm, again I would consider this as perhaps the most important norm: avoid spelling mistakes and typographical errors. Now, people say, as far as internet communication is concerned, or even mobile communication is concerned, people say that spelling mistakes are no problem. Typographical errors, who is having time to correct them? But as I have been telling, when we talk about communication, we are talking about effective communication, and to make your communication effective, you have to be professionally good. To be professionally good and to maintain a professionally high standard profile, you need to follow certain norms. Now, this norm, whether it is email or in any other letter writing, or generally any form of writing related to communication, is very important, and more so in case of email communication. Avoid spelling mistakes, avoid typographical errors. Check your mail for spelling mistakes and typographical errors. In fact, most of the email clients have inbuilt spell checker that underlines errors while typing itself. So, the spelling mistakes are underlined in red color, grammatical errors are underlined in blue or green color, to just to indicate to you that there are errors. You should not skip them, you should look at them carefully. And nowadays again there are email clients which just by the use of a right click lets you to correct the spelling immediately, even it will prompt you with the correct grammatical sentence there, and you can use those prompters to correct them. If you pay attention to these underlined words, you will not only save plenty of the receiver's time, but also ensure that your message is communicated effectively. So, bad spelling and frequent typographical errors reflect illiteracy. What do I mean by illiteracy and lack of professionalism? Illiteracy, the person may be educated, okay, the person may be highly qualified, but illiteracy in terms of communication, meaning the person does not know, or the person is not educated, or the person is not trained enough to know the norms of communicating using email communication on the internet. The person who is not caring about spelling mistakes, about typographical errors, is also lacking in professionalism. Just by looking at the email with typographical errors and spelling mistakes, the receiver will decide whether to respond to that favorably or not. There are some people who are so particular about these mistakes, and the moment they see mistakes abounding in that, they generally give a negative response, such as an applicant seeking an interview with the employer, and the email cover letter goes with lot of errors, lot of spelling mistakes. Obviously, the employer is not interested in having this person, and especially if this person has to be employed at a level where he has to use lot of email communication, this employer will definitely think in a negative manner, because putting this person in such a precarious position will cause lot of miscommunication and damage to the employer's organization. Now, another norm that has been neglected, but nonetheless significant, is taking note of punctuation marks. In fact, many people who use email have the impression that emails need not have punctuation at all. So, people write mails without capital letters, write mails without commas and all that. So, this is a kind of misconception. People think that there is no need to use punctuation marks while sending emails, but punctuation marks, particularly capitalization and spaces after punctuation. So, like after full stop you are supposed to give 2 space in the old typing format. Now, in the modern format even a single space is accepted. In the old typing format after colon 2 spaces were used, after semicolon it will be single space. Now, at least consistent space is accepted, but giving space before a punctuation is not acceptable. But people do not give space or give it before punctuation, between a word and punctuation. No, these are all not acceptable, and this will not make the communication content clear. Now, look at a following mail. I am just going to show it on the next one, which I received it from a scholar, and this is one of the samples that we used to get as teachers, and then you will know how the sender has scant regard to punctuation. There is no sensitization towards punctuation, there is no knowledge of capitalization and rampant use of personal abbreviations, and they have immensely affected the readability and effectiveness of the mail. Now, let us look at the email that I received. If you look at it, first of all there are no punctuation marks. Now, look at this, thanks for D suggestion sir. Now, D, okay, you understand it is the. Now, everybody will not understand it is the. Suggestion sir, maybe apostrophe or S with capital, these are missing. If you, now instead of YOU, this is you. Now, this again is acceptable, but remember this is a student writing to a professor seeking a favor, and again the professor is dealing with communication. Now, you can understand how sensitive it is. The professor is likely to form a very bad impression, although on humanitarian grounds the professor may still help the student, that is a different thing. But why not the student also pay some attention to this? Now, if you can give me some suggestions, so it, there is an error, be very kind from your side, again for your abbreviation is used. Now, actually I am, but apostrophe is not there. First M, 1M, IM, apostrophe is not there to indicate that it is an abbreviation, it is a contraction of am. So, actually I am, I would even prefer a comma after actually. Actually I am PG. Now, I am a postgraduate student would be better. Now, this WD probably means with, but I have no way of understanding that it would mean with. This is a typical example of a personalized kind of abbreviation which should be avoided. 67% in. Now, whenever you use Roman letter, it already implies the position. This is second. Now, adding ND, actually it reads as second ind. Now, on the one hand the person is using less words. Now, here overuse of this abbreviation here, year, N standing for probably and, would, probably here the person means would, but actually with 62%, as again I do not understand AI as a AI over I, again sometimes you find I is properly capitalized, here I is not capitalized. Was doing PhD under Mrs. B.R. Agarwal. I am glad that at least the person's name is mentioned properly, with title and all that. The principal of Saraswati Devi College, I just changed the name of the college not to offend the person. BT, now the person probably implies but, cause, because of, again D standing for the. Entrance announcement in Kanpur University, again I would prefer K capital, U capital, I capital. I couldn't, either there is an apostrophe here to indicate that this is not, or full form is written in NOT. Get my thesis registered, N again, and it was also cause, because of the busy schedule of my guide. So, as per my per in this situation, I do not know, probably the person means as per my personal situation, WT. So, generally this is used for weight. Now, here the person is used for probably what. Should I, again instead of capital small, I do. Now, if the person is implying this as a question mark, I would expect a question mark instead of a full stop. Kindly send your suggestions. So, your again abbreviation, I will, again this is neither an abbreviation nor written in full form. So, WIL, one L is missing, be obliged. I removed the remaining part and the name of the person, but I was taking pains to read this through just to indicate to you how difficult it is when you are using abbreviations and when you are giving scant regard to punctuation marks, when you are not bothering about capital letters. How does it look? It is a very small email, but how much time did we take to read through this email? And at the end of it, I understand, okay, the student wants some suggestion. Now, it takes time for me to know this. So, I am just telling you by giving this small demonstrative model, avoid this kind of email. You are thinking that you are spending less time, but you understand that you are consuming more time of the receiver. And if the other person is supposed to be your higher authority or supposed to be a teacher, as in this case, who is supposed to grant a favor, you are already creating an impression that why should the teacher grant you a favor when you are not bothering about the time of that person. So, keep this in mind. Now, towards the concluding part, so far I have talked about some of the most important norms related to the stylistics part, the writing part of communication. Now, this is a minor part which is not actually related to writing, this is an automatic setting, but nevertheless it is an important norm. Check your computer clock, check your computer clock. What do we mean by this? Now, sometimes the clock gives a different date and time and your email is sent in a different date and time. So, set the system clock right before sending an email, or check the system clock whether it has the correct date, correct time. Why this? Now, you will be sending sometimes an email asking somebody for a meeting, and by chance you forgot to mention the exact date and time, and then your mail goes and the person is opening the mail today, but it looks like the mail was sent 3 months before, because the date is indicating 3 months before time. Now, obviously the other person is baffled, the receiver is confused as whether to respond to this mail or not. Is it a spam? Has your computer generated that email and sent it because of some virus? So many confusions. Is the meeting really happening now because this was sent 3 months before and saying that you are supposed to meet tomorrow? Now, 3 months before tomorrow, it is already over. To avoid that, to avoid this profuse confusion that you will cause to the reader, especially if you are fixing an appointment, just check the clock, indicate the time and then be careful about it. So much so about setting your computer clock correctly, accurately. What happens if you have not bothered about setting it correctly, accurately? It shows inaccurate timing, and because it shows inaccurate timing, what happens? The receiver of your email thinks of a future event as an event that already happened in the past. Now, since the receiver thought that you have intimated about an event that already happened in the past, the receiver most likely will not attend that event. So, imagine a situation that it is a very important meeting, you want all of your people to come and attend it, and you have sent to, let us say, 40-50 people, hardly 1 or 2 may turn out for that important meeting, just because your computer clock indicated tomorrow not as the day that is coming after today, but as a day that went about 3 months before. Now, if you have that consciousness in mind, and then if you reset the clock, so you will not have any problem in communication. These things are looking like minor nitty-gritty details, but nevertheless, as I keep telling, they are very important, and sometimes it can lead to miscommunication. Now, before I actually sum up and conclude, I would like to reiterate one point which we discussed in one of the earlier lectures on introductory aspects of communication about the inappropriate and excessive use of channels. I have been telling that channels are important, you need to use them effectively, and you need to know which channel to use and communicate the message how effectively by using that particular channel. For example, if it is an emotional communication, face to face communication is better than sending an email message using internet. But conversely, these days, since we are having huge access to multi channels, what we tend to do is use as many channels as possible and then cause miscommunication. Now, just as a caution to avoid that kind of miscommunication, I will use an illustrative example to demonstrate why email or any other channel should not be used excessively. The process of communication, if you remember, simply includes the sender, and then the sender is encoding some idea, information. It could be message in the written form, verbal form, non-verbal form. So, he encodes that message and sends it to the receiver, the simple process. But while doing it, he will be using various channels. It could be in the form of a memo, it could be in the form of a report, it could be in the form of using the channel like fax, it could be using another channel pager, it could be using telephone or mobile phone, it could be a PowerPoint presentation like the one I am using in my lecture, it could be just an email. Now, if you remember again, I was telling at the outset of the lectures on communication that it is very important that you use the channels effectively, but you do not overuse them. So, before we conclude our discussion on netiquette and email communication in internet, I would like to just discuss with you one illustrative example of how using email and other channels in combination with that in a very inappropriate mode. This is one illustrative story that was sent to me as a forward through again email, but then I find this quite interesting, and the author of this is anonymous, not known, but still the content, the way it is presented is quite useful and relevant for our aspect of communication using email, using the internet. Now, as an illustrative example, we are focusing on email. You know very well that email is now the dominant method of communicating in business, in professional communication, like in places like IIT Kanpur, we have a kind of paperless office. All the communication is done through email exchange. We do not have to sign, and even the email is considered as authentic when it is sent through the institute email ID of the concerned person. Now, when that is the dominant pattern of communicating in business, we also know that it is quick, it is inexpensive, it is flexible and convenient, but what happens is we overuse, and sometimes we do not realize, especially when we do not follow the netiquette norms, we do not realize that it could be a time bomb, it could just blast, it could just damage the relationship that was built up for ages. So, you have to use it with care. Now, as I said, just as an example, while welcoming you to the era of communication without limits, let us look at this illustrative example. Hello Bob, did you review the contract I sent you? There is a communication between two persons. So, he says it is finished, and then he says he will send by email. Stop. Era of communications without limits. So, welcome to the era of communication without limits. Look at this illustrative example. There is an officer sitting in his office workspace and the ring is coming. So, he responds to this. Now, the ring is indicating a channel, the ring is coming from telephone. Now, telephone is now used as a channel for communication. Remember, I am just going to demonstrate to you the inappropriate and overuse of excessive channels. Now, first telephone is used, let us see how the person is responding. So, probably the other person is another boss talking to this person who is boss of another company. So, but they are quite friends probably. So, he says, hello Bob. The other person is asking, did you review the contract I sent you? Now, if you look at the communication aspect here, the first use of the channel, there is no problem. Telephone, both are using telephone, up to here there is no problem, it is even looking appropriate, the communication has take place. Did you review the contract I sent you? The other person says probably finished. So, up to here absolutely no problem, he says, so it is finished, you will send it to me by email. Now, shifting from one channel to another channel, from telephone, now he is suggesting that he should send it through email. Now, probably since it has to be sent to email ID and since this person is quite busy, he does not remember the email ID, and it so happens sometimes very busy CEOs of companies have so many email identities, they do not even remember which address. So, in this case he says you will send it to me by email, and the other person says my email address, frankly I do not remember it. So, this is quite natural, but this is also implying in a funny manner what happens when we use so many email IDs. What happens when we are overusing internet as a mode for communication, we tend to forget the email address. So, this has happened in his case, he says frankly I do not remember it, just a minute let me check. Now, he is calling his personal assistant, he is saying Nicole, so she is rushing to the spot. Now, even she is again used as a messenger of communication, as a storehouse of information, she is coming to give him the information that is needed for him. So, he is asking what is my email address, what is my email ID? She gives one of the IDs which she remembers very well. Then he says no, that is my home email address. So, I need the office email address which I need to send it to my friend and boss of the other company. Now, probably she says even she does not remember it, or they could not get hold of it at that moment. So, he responds to the call on the telephone, he says listen, I can't find it, let me check and call you back. Started with telephone, email communication, before initiation we find that the address is missing. So, he says he will call him back. Now, how is he intending to call him back? And in the meanwhile the other person says he is leaving for lunch. So, he comes to know of that, he says, oh, you are going for lunch, okay, I will send you the address by fax. So, since the other person will not be there at the other end to receive this communication, so although he is going for lunch, he says he will send the address by fax. Now, funnily enough, he has gone to the third channel, third mode of communication, telephone, email, fax. you will have it when you get back, okay. So, in the meanwhile when he is going for lunch, he would have sent the email address on fax. Now, the other problem is he needs to get the fax number of the other person, okay. So, give me your fax number, and the other person probably says he does not remember it. Just like the way this person does not remember his email address, the other person is too busy to remember his fax number. Again, I am just funnily I am cautioning you what happens when you are overusing channels. Now, when he says he does not know, so he is also quite surprised, but he says, what, you do not know it, okay. Here is what we will do, you email me your fax number and I will fax you my email address, okay. Now, slowly communication is becoming a complicated process where it could have been a very simple one. It is becoming complicated because they are going to use more and more channels where a most appropriate one could have been decided, but they are going to other channels. So, then the other person says that it will not work. So, he says, oh no, that will not work, wait, I am getting mixed up, let me think. And then he thinks for some time, he says, so, okay, well, yeah, and then he got some idea. Then he is asking about the mobile number, he is asking, what is your cell phone number? Now, he receives another interesting reply. Probably the other person says the battery is dead, he is not recharged for quite some time, again he is busy for recharging, there is no time for recharging. Oh, your battery is dead, then what about yours? He says mine too. So, both of them are so busy that they do not have time to recharge, so both batteries are dead, not functional anymore. So, then what to do? Okay, listen, here is what we will do. You charge your cell phone battery, I will call you in a couple of hours and leave you my email address in your voicemail. Telephone, email, fax, mobile, now they have come to voicemail, another channel. Then you take my email address in your voicemail and you email me your fax number. See how complicated and convoluted it is becoming. Then I can fax you my email address. That is plan A. Now, for plan B. So, they are professionals. So, they always have plan A and plan B. So, plan A is like this. Plan B, I send myself an email to see what my email address is and then I record a message for you in my voicemail. This just like most of us who have 2-3 mobiles and we do not even remember the mobile number of one of the mobiles when somebody is asking us immediately. So, we probably say that I will send this message from this mobile to the other one and then I will come to know the number. Okay. So, just like that he says I will also try to find out my email address by following the same method. When you get it, you send me the answer on my pager. Now, pager is another channel, another mode. Now, they are moving from one to another, again overusing all of them. So, he says, so then I will send you a fax with my email address. Complicated? No, it is not at all complicated. We just need a bit of coordination and luck. But most of the times in a communication element, one cannot just rely on luck. People may be willing to coordinate, but then because of certain complexities involved, you cannot rely on luck, you have to be very careful in terms of communication. There is also a third possibility like plan C, that is much simpler. Plan C, you send me the contract directly by express messenger. Express messenger is what commonly we call as courier. So, he is suggesting that you send it through a courier service. Now, this is another mode of communication: telephone, email, fax, pager, voicemail, and now they have gone to courier. Yeah, it is the best plan strategically speaking. But actually, I have a small question. What was I supposed to send you by email? Now, so much discussion and finally, the actual content is missed. What was I supposed to send you by email? Was it my email address, my fax number, my cell number, pager, telephone? What was it? He is not able to recollect. The other person also who is so busy, he says, oh, I do not remember either. It would probably be a good idea to have periodic bilateral coordination meetings concerning protocols for internal communications. But anyway, this is the anticlimax. He says, since your office is at the other end of the corridor, I will come by to pick it up in 2 minutes. Okay, bye. This is what will happen in big cities where multinational corporations are there, where people sit at one corner and the neighbor is at the other corner. Sometimes the neighboring multinational corporation is just the nearest one, but then because they have so many channels for communication, they overuse, and finally they do not get time just to knock at the next door and then get the information, which could be done so easily, so efficiently, without even using any of these channels. Now, when I am saying that we should use the channel, I mean to say we should use it effectively, and when we can do away with these channels, email, phone, mobile, and when we can go to somebody personally and can get the information, and when we can convey the message effectively, that is the one that is to be most desired. But nonetheless, in the lecture, when we have talked about general netiquette norms that is to be used for email communication, that is quite useful for communicating email, internet as a mode of communication, and using that mode very effectively. Now, the moral of this illustrative story is that thanks to technology, we can now waste time with an efficiency until now unimaginable, all in the name of saving time. So, email is used for saving time as against snail mail. So, the conventional postal mail is called as snail mail because figuratively it looks like it is moving like a snail, and email is just reaching very fast. But in sending spams, in replying thoughtlessly to so many people, in not following the netiquette norms, what we end up actually is we send so many mails, we spam the inbox of our receivers, and finally we waste their time, we waste our time with such an efficiency we have never thought of so far, and all in the name of saving time. That is quite ironic in this context. So, just as a concluding point, once again recollecting the netiquette norms that we have discussed just before this illustrative story, you should understand why you should use first of all email communication, and there is no doubt that email has its own effectiveness, and if you follow the norms that have been discussed so far, the norms could generate a high level of professionalism. You will be known for your professional way of sending emails. Much more than that, not only professionalism but also likability. What do I mean by likability? You will be liked for the emails will be liked for the nature, for the content, for the sensible nature in which you have sent the subject, etc. And the result, it will get you favorable responses. Often people wonder, why is it when Mr. X is sending an email, he is always getting favorable responses, and why is it when Mr. Y is sending it, he is always getting negative responses? The reason is a matter of following the norms, netiquette norms effectively and not following them at all. I am not saying that Mr. X may be a very well trained person and is very thorough and is using all the norms. Some of us use these norms very implicitly. We do not know, but then out of some cultured practice, we have imbibed the norms. Maybe we learnt how to write a letter efficiently, and even from those memories of writing a good letter, we are also writing email in an effective manner. But this one, the lecture, in combination with the previous lecture on Netiquette in general and email communication in particular, is intended to give you a kind of checklist, so that the next time when you intend to send an important email or even just a personal email to a friend, before pressing the send button in a hurry, usually we send it and even we remember that, oh, I sent it before even uploading that attachment, then we send another email. So, even before sending that button in a hurry, pressing that button in a hurry, you can use this lecture and the previous lecture. Both of them have given you sufficient norms for using email communication effectively on the internet, and when you use this as a quick checklist for Netiquette, what you can do is that you can build up a reputation for sending good, engaging, thoughtful, time saving and useful mails. Now, I mean each of these words when I say this: good as against bad emails. Bad emails are just deleted or considered as spams. Send good emails, let people read, enjoy, cherish. People should not feel like deleting it. Maybe for some reason, the way you have written, the choice of words, the concern that is shown, the sensibility that it's carrying, engaging, it's not boring, it's engaging because it's focused, it's to the point, it's thoughtful, it's thought of the subject line, some time is spent in revising the draft, the body of the email, time saving. The subject line itself has indicated very clearly to the receiver what the email is about. The receiver can decide whether to get into the details or just to delete it or to read it at a later stage. Time saving. No inadvertent reply is sent to the person who need not receive that mail at all. That is how it becomes time saving. And useful mails. Always remember, whether it is a personal one or a professional one, do not send useless mails. Even if it is going to be a forward, do not just forward just like that. So, give a thought, see whether that forward will be really of some use to the receiver, and then only you should send it. Hopefully, these tips, these suggestions in the form of norms will help you in sending email very effectively next time when you are going and sitting before your computer, and if you give a thought to these norms before touching that send button. So, overall, combining the previous lecture as well as this lecture, you learnt and hopefully you have understood the definition of Netiquette. As I said, it is a combination of two words, internet and etiquette. So, the basic socially acceptable, culturally permissible norms and professionally parliamentary usage of certain words will contribute to Netiquette in terms of definition. The need for Netiquette, I said, in terms of effectiveness, you need to be a professional to use this one, otherwise this can result as a time bomb, it can mar the relationship that has been built up for years, it can destroy the goodwill of a company that has been built up for generations. And then we discussed some of the basic Netiquette norms. They are basic, they are simple, but nevertheless they are very, very useful. Now, just as a reference, further reference, although we do not have full length books written on Netiquette, there are only minor chapters, and as you could see, some of the examples which I have shown, they are all picked out from my own real life situations, forwards sent by people, emails sent by the students, by my own colleagues. So, one has to use one's discretion and carefully analyze these emails. So, since there are no particular book, there are some interesting sites which also give you some general Netiquette norms and generally talk about Netiquette. There is one network etiquette, and then there is also a site where the rules are generally discussed. So, given the lecture background, if you need more information, you can go to these references. They will also give you some more tips, and thank you so much for attending to this lecture. Thank you.